When you choose to earn your degree online from Southern New Hampshire University, you're saying yes to new opportunities and to new adventures. You're saying yes to something big, something you've always wanted to do. If earning your degree is one of your goals this new year, SNHU can help you get there. With low online tuition, no set class times, and multiple term starts per year, you can set the pace that works for you and save money along the way. Visit snhu.edu today to get started.
Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner. I'm your co-host and producer. So happy to have you here, folks. Listen, we've got a great guest today, and this is part 2 of an episode that aired earlier, which was part 1. And what happened was when we recorded that episode, we lost the back half due to technical difficulties. In the first half, we talked with our guest all about her discovering her Enneagram type and her journey, which that episode is titled Befriending Feelings to Find Wholeness. Befriending Feelings to Find Wholeness. Today, we talk about her book, brand new book called Sexpectations. You heard me right. Sexpectations, Reframing Your Good and Not So Good Stories About God, Love, and Relationships. I'm talking about Enneagram 5 Wing 4, Dr. Carol Tanksley. She's back. Practiced medicine as an OBGYN physician and reproductive endocrinologist for over 29 years. She knows what she's talking about, folks. She has a Master's of Divinity and a Doctor of Ministry. She has, of course, the Dr. Carol Show. We're so happy to have her here so that we can finish the conversation that we started on the previous podcast about her book, Sexpectations. This is a deep dive. You'll definitely want to check this out. And for reference, if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to Befriending Feelings to Find Wholeness featuring Dr. Carol Tanksley, Enneagram 5 Wing 4. So glad you're here, folks. That's it for me, Anthony Skinner. And now here is the host of our show, Ian Crum.
All right, Carol, listen, I am so stoked to talk about your new book, Sexpectations, because, again, as I said earlier in the program, in our last episode together, I love that I'm doing this with a 5 because you all are that non-anxious presence. You kind of come in and we're just going to talk about the facts, and you sort of take all the anxiety out of the conversation that most people have when we start talking about intimacy and about sex problems and sex, all the stuff, right? So what do you think are the 2 or 3 top misconceptions people have about sex?
That it's about bodies more than matters of the heart. It involves our bodies. Well, yeah. But I believe that when people focus just on behaviors and things they do with their bodies, they miss the weight of it and, frankly, the beauty of it. So that would definitely be number 1. Yeah.
All right.
And another misconception I would say is that a sexual encounter is primarily about getting my self-gratification, getting my needs met. And I could wax eloquent for probably more than a moment about some of the cultural messages and the porn messages and whatever that lead to that. But I believe the way God intended sex to be was to build relationship between husband and wife. The doctor part of me knows just a little bit about the neurobiology and the chemicals that get released. And there is a bonding that is more than only physical that becomes really important. And the second, and maybe the third, is that you are only a sexual being if you're having sex. I am a widow since my husband passed away, but I am still a sexual being. We are all sexual beings, regardless of relationship status or whether you're having sex or not. And that is something to steward and honor because it's the way God made us.
So that actually raises an interesting question because I'm sure I have lots of people that listen to the show who are not sexually active and are not in a partnership or for whatever reason, right? How do you steward your sexuality outside as a single person outside? How does it express itself and how do you steward it?
I had to learn that in some respects the hard way. But what I might first say is, how did Jesus steward his sexuality? From everything we know from the Gospels and church tradition, Jesus was never married. He never had sex. But we also know he was fully human. And although the biblical text doesn't say specific words, I think we can say he had all the sex hormones, sex drives, sex organs that any other fully alive human male would. How did he deal with that? Two ways that I would say for Jesus. One is he was an intimate, daily, moment-to-moment connection with his heavenly Father. We are built for connection, and primarily connection with God. That's the air we were built to breathe in. Adam and Eve in the garden, walking with God daily, face to face. And also Jesus needed humans. So when we confuse intimacy and sexuality, I think we miss some of the deep intimacy needs that God created us with. And so for Jesus, that looked like pursuing actively deep heart-to-heart connection with a few other humans. Certainly he had the crowd and even the 70 and the 12 disciples, but Peter, James, and John, there was something deep and human between them. It was messy. They let him down. But Jesus pursued it anyway. He needed that. There was a sense in which connection with his heavenly Father wasn't, air quotes, enough for Jesus. We need that kind of connection also. So for me, now, as an unmarried person who is not engaging in sexual activity, what does that mean? It means honoring myself as a female, as a woman, that is connected with my sexuality. What does my femaleness mean? How I bring myself to the world. It means that I deeply nourish, pay attention to my need for connection and intimacy with God and with a few others. That doesn't come natural to me. I'm naturally an introvert, so I have to exert conscious energy to connect with a few others. When I do, it changes everything about my soul and my life, but I have to be intentional about that.
How do you know when you've achieved non-sexual intimacy with another person?
Do you ever know? That's my first response. But I believe that paradigm of knowing and being known, seeing and being seen. If I am with another person and I don't have to put on eggshells, that I can be the good, the bad, the ugly, the neurobiological changes that does in my brain, it is real. And we only do that, I believe, in part in this world. I think of Paul's ending to the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13. Here I see and know in part, then I will see and know even as I am known. That's the hunger and desire for intimacy. We seek it as much as possible now, even though we know that there's some messiness and incompleteness, and no human being can fill another up. But to pursue seeing and being seen with no emotional or spiritual walls in between. You cannot experience intimacy just by taking the clothes off your body. And that's part of the lie of sex, that if I just take my clothes off, I'm going to experience intimacy. No, I think there are many of our listeners who would reflect on sexual experiences that weren't intimate if you just took the clothes off your body. The coverings have to come off your mind and heart and soul, and that doesn't require sexual activity, body parts touching. It can be souls touching.
That's good.
So interesting. I am part of a 12-step community for people in recovery for addictions to drugs and alcohol. And I was in a meeting last night, a Zoom meeting, and I don't know the last names of these people, but I see them every week, right? And what's so interesting is I went into the meeting kind of sort of heavy-hearted, not really wanting to be there. As the topic of the meeting was spiritual awakenings, right? Because the purpose of the 12 steps is to facilitate a spiritual awakening of sufficient force that it renders the need for an addictive behavior or substance unnecessary. When I got off the call, I felt such a lightness of being. And this happens to me because I go to 3-4 meetings a week. And what I realize is that I don't know outside of my marriage, and I have a wonderful marriage to a beautiful woman now. We've known each other 40 years. But in these meetings, I experience a level of intimacy, and the word I would use, maybe the word that we could use and tell me if you agree, with intimacy is connection. This group of 12 people who don't see each other at any other hour during the week coming together and sharing at the deepest levels of their lives. And it's not like we get together and people say all kinds of shocking things about their behaviors. There's tons of laughter in these meetings. There's tons of laughter. It's not what anybody thinks, right? But there is a kind of sacrality to it, right? Like, people will share very deeply, and then there's a long silence, and no one's allowed to cross-talk or fix anybody or jump in and make everything right or have an answer. Everybody just sits in the silence and actually just bears witness to another person's story in the day. I don't understand it entirely, except to say that there's so much healing in it that I can't really fathom it.
Yeah. Somebody that I believe you and I both know and love, Dr. Kurt Thompson, talks about, he uses the word confessional communities, but the idea is what happens in our very physical nervous systems when we experience that kind of seeing and being seen, that kind of connection. I believe our contemporary culture, and sadly, in my opinion, even much of the contemporary Christian church, does not facilitate that well.
No.
And it's tragic, I believe, because we need it. It's not just a nice to have. We have to have it to thrive.
You know, Anthony, when Annie and I are looking for certified dairy-free products or vegetarian snacks that meet our plant-based diet needs, Thrive Market makes it easy for us. We simply use their handy filters to search for dairy-free, gluten-free, or vegetarian products, and we know we'll find items made with the highest quality ingredients and sourcing methods. Like, for example, Thrive Market's organic riced cauliflower or Deliciously Ella's gluten-free granola.
I find it easier to stay on track with my health goals by eating out less and having access to hundreds of healthy, sustainable swaps across Thrive Market's food categories where I can get organic snacks, low sugar alternatives, which is huge for me, and other essentials.
Not only do I save time with Thrive Market, brother, but I save money on every single grocery order. On average, I save over $33 each time I shop.
Oh, I believe that. Where can our listeners take advantage of these savings, Ian?
Save time and money and shop Thrive Market today. Go to thrivemarket.com/typology for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's Thrive, THRIVE, market.com/typology. thrivemarket.com/typology. So I have a story. I have a friend of mine, I'll change his name, obviously. Philip was the pastor of a large conservative evangelical church, had a hidden drinking problem at home by himself, until he showed up at church one Sunday morning, completely potted. And they figured this out about 5 minutes into the sermon. That the poor guy is sozzled, and they let him out. And instead of, they did everything wrong you could do, right? They fired him, which was the wrong thing to do, right? And I remember seeing him once in the basement. After a meeting one night, he said, it's so ironic. He said, in the basement of the church, I find grace and mercy and acceptance and laughter and forgiveness and hope, and that I never got upstairs. I go to AA meetings in the basement of a church where I get everything I was supposed to get upstairs, but never got there.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. And for whatever success various 12-step programs have had, and they've had a lot, I believe that is one of the primary keys. And the body of Christ was intended to do that. And we can do a lot better at that. Yes. I think the point is that because of that deep need we as humans have, when we don't have that need addressed or met, we will go to something else to try to fill that up.
Yes. And that is exactly what we're taught about in 12-step meetings. That is the teaching of the big book that we use, right? That is what it teaches. It teaches that you were looking for God, you were looking for connection, you had a problem, drinking or drugs or whatever your thing is became the solution that eventually became a bigger problem than the solution. And so the only way back is to be reconnected to God and to others, right? And to yourself in deeper and deeper ways. So you say that all of us as human beings have been sexually harmed in some way. And there's lots of open conversation about this now, thank goodness. How so, and how does it express itself? How does that harm express itself?
Certainly there are the gross ways. Sexual abuse, in childhood especially, rape, and all of that stuff. But it's much broader than that. Early sexualization where a young girl or a young boy gets the message that my value is my sex appeal, or that my body is my power without my heart being seen, or that it's dangerous to connect with another person. You learn stuff, all of us did, the proverbial you, before you knew you were learning anything about sex, before the birds and the bees talk. Your caretakers, or early sexual experiences, or porn. A lot of people have been sexually discipled by porn. So that objectification becomes a way to, as we were talking about just a minute ago, get that hole in me filled up. So there are significant numbers of people that sex is what they try to do to get that hole filled up. And like fast food, maybe it satisfies your stomach churning for a moment, but it's empty calories and it only destroys you and kills you slower and more painfully. Other parts of sexual harm is triangulation, for example, in a family where the parents do not have a healthy relationship and one of the children is made emotionally a spouse to the parent. That's sexual harm. Whether or not physical sexual behaviors go in between. And there can be all kinds of variations of this. Sex becomes it becomes either too small or too large. I believe part of the healing and transformation God would invite all of us to, among the results, is that sex becomes right-sized. It's important. It's not something we ignore. We don't put away the sexual part of our being, which we can't, but we may try and split it off. Neither does it become a god. Neither is healthy. It becomes right-sized. And so part of the sexual harm is the disordered of that. The sexual harm can include religious messages. That sex by its very nature is dirty and corrupting. The only book in the Bible devoted to one single subject is Song of Songs, devoted to sex. Glorious between husband and wife, and it's all unadulterated goodness. The Bible is also just as open about really bad and ugly sex. You can find all of that in the Bible. So part of our sexual harm can be only taking the negative messages about sex, which the church in significant measures, in significant seasons, has gotten very good at putting the bad messages there without giving any messages about how do we steward this well, or helping people understand the need for intimacy, perhaps especially if they're unmarried. How do we connect to get some of those holes filled? I think even that could perhaps be called, in some respects, sexual harm.
This show is sponsored by Earth Breeze.
Anthony, you know how you throw a dryer sheet into the dryer when doing laundry? Have you ever wondered why we can't do that in the washing machine?
Absolutely. Why do I use liquid detergent that comes in a big, heavy plastic container that always drips onto my washer and then gets tossed into the garbage? And I know that it takes years for it to break down.
Well, I have good news for you, brother. Fortunately, I found a solution. It's called Earth Breeze. It looks like a dryer sheet, but actually replaces that cup of goo. It's a pre-measured, liquidless laundry detergent sheet that dissolves in all wash cycles, hot or cold. No measuring, no mess, and no heavy lifting, my friend. That's right, no plastic jug.
Ooh, tell me more.
Each package comes with 30 sheets that can wash up to 60 loads of laundry. I signed up for their subscription, dude. I love that it's delivered with free carbon offset shipping right when I need it. And I have full control to adjust, to pause, to cancel the subscription without hidden fees or penalties. Most importantly, I still get a powerful clean, my friend. Earth Breeze is tough on stains, fights odors, and my clothes come out clean every time. So now when I do laundry, I just quickly throw in a sheet and feel good about doing something positive for the environment.
Ooh, I love that. So what happens if somebody tries it but they don't like it?
Well, Earth Breeze offers a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you don't like it, you'll get a full refund, my friend. No questions asked and no return necessary. Right now, Typology listeners can receive 40% off Earth Breeze just by going to earthbreeze.com/typology podcast. That's earthbreeze.com/typology podcast to cut out single-use plastic in your laundry room and claim 40% off your subscription. earthbreeze.com/typology podcast. It's interesting. Something that you say in your book is that when a person is experiencing some form of sexual sin, let's call it an affair or something of that kind, that most people believe forgiveness of the sin is enough. But that's not true, is it? Tell us more.
Thank God for forgiveness, and it is real. If all your past acts went away and were wiped clean, would you want to stay the way that you are? I think probably any thoughtful person would have to acknowledge, I'm not okay the way I am. If all the negative sexual messages and everything else from the world, and if that went away, my brain is still in need of healing and transformation and integration and becoming. That's the beauty of the gospel. Thank God for forgiveness, but also thank God it doesn't stop there. If it did stop there, would I just be white knuckling on not to engage in some behavior? To take the 12-step analogy in drugs and alcohol that you've been open about, Ian, would you want to be pulled to the bottle just as badly now and just as isolated and self-contempt? No, there's a change that's possible and frankly that we are called to.
So let me ask you a question that Anthony and I talk about a lot. How do people change? It's a big question, Carol. Maybe it is not on. It is, in other words, like it's easy and it's frustrating. As a therapist, like I can tell you what the problem is,
and most people know.
But
know pretty well what the problem is.
How do people change?
I would reference our mutual friend, Dr. Kurt Thompson, again. By being around other humans who are in the same process. We need other brains to learn to become human. And when you are seen and felt and known, change becomes possible. It's building the new brain pathways. And I believe that is the way the presence of God changes us as well. It's not just stuffing more facts about God into my left brain. I have to come to the place where my walls are down enough so that Jesus, through his Spirit, enters in and I am seen and known by him. I feel felt by him. That's how I begin to change. It's not an immediate process.
Yes. And so it's not an immediate process. And maybe I'm talking about the accelerant here, but it seems to me that most people are able to settle for as little transformation as will get them by because they have not been blessed with the gift of desperation. So for lots of people, Jesus is a preference, not a need. My church gives me a nice social life. My kids go to the youth group. I play on the softball team. It's nice. It's nice. I like it. But there's not this transformative relationship born. See, that's the thing about 12-step programs. God is not a preference. When you get there, it's either God is everything or God is not at all, and you're dead. That's pretty much the options when you come into that room. Okay? So all of a sudden, desperation has a way of sort of removing any other option. Does that, you know what I mean? And then the openness to transformation, desperation opens you up to a level of transformation I have never seen upstairs in the sanctuary. like I've just never seen it anywhere else, right?
Amen.
And I keep thinking to myself, how do you create an atmosphere or a something, I'm not sure what it is, that helps people get in touch with the depth of their need for God? Do you have any thoughts on that?
A seminary professor, when I went to seminary, used to say, we are too often in the business of dishing out Rolaids instead of letting their hearts burn as Jesus did. We in the body of Christ who are trying to help others have a part to play in not whitewashing and minimizing symptoms. Walking alongside people doesn't mean saying everything is okay, but it does mean accepting. I love your 12-step analogy that you keep coming back to, Ian, because that's a picture of transformation that I don't know if I've seen happen upstairs. To bring that into the sexuality arena, if I think, oh, maybe I should cut down on my porn use, it's more than I really like. Good luck with that. You can try harder for a little bit, but how's that going to work for you? When I see that this is actually going to kill me, or maybe if I'm married, it's going to kill my marriage, that kind of desperateness, to use another 12-step thing, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom.
You bet. I just wish other people, this is weird to say, I just wish sometimes that other people had been blessed with an experience of desperation.
Yep.
Because though it is highly unpleasant, it is the beginning of the beginning. Like when people first come into the rooms, and by the way, I will say it's about porn has never been my issue. I will say that right up front. I've had plenty of others. Trust me, that has not been one of them. But I mean, Carol, I know so many people who live lives of quiet desperation because of their addiction to porn. Like every time a guy calls me who I haven't spoken to for a year or two, and they say, "Hey man, can we get together and talk?" I go, "It's porn." I just know what we're gonna do. It's like, it is so common now. It's like, and they're like, "Oh, this is the most horrible thing ever." It's like, you're the fourth guy this week. What are you talking about? Like you are like pedestrian at this point.
Yeah.
But it is so problematic.
It is, and church people, pastors, same thing. The largest single portion of people who come to me and our resources and asking for help are married people, and their sex life is disordered. I no longer ask if porn is an issue. I ask how and where is porn been a part of your life or your spouse's life or both? What role is it having? Not is it having a role? Because it's our culture. Other kinds of, desperateness. A person who has been sexually traumatized and ends up acting out sexually, going from one hookup to another. Quite common, actually. Perhaps because I'm a woman, I hear more of those stories from women, but I'm saying I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again. And then 10 days later, okay, you're in somebody else's bed. And you have to get desperate enough that steps 1, 2, and 3, I can't stop this on my own. Something is disordered and I have to do something different. And God is the only place I can think of an answer, but it's more than just stuffing facts about God into your left brain. This has to be a spiritual awakening, to use the 12-step language. It has to allow him in. And here's another thing. It can't be robotic telehealth surgery from across the state or the town. Jesus has to come in. Sometimes we would like God to just drop healing on us from on high. There may be moments when he does, but he rarely, if ever, operates that way. And frankly, that doesn't bring the kind of transformation to become the different person I truly long to be. He actually has to come in, and that can be terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. And I am offered the choice. I get to choose. I can say no, but I'm going to stay in my soup if I do. And so I'm eventually presented with, I have to allow him in to do the heart surgery if I want to become any different.
So we've talked a lot about around this topic of sexual history. Everybody has anyone who's a human,
Yep.
I think, has a broken sexual history.
Agreed.
And some people have very in-depth broken sexual histories. How do they find healing?
As Jesus dealt with people when he was here on earth, including those who had a messed up sexual history and story, it was a message of, here, let's deal with this. It was complete honesty, nothing whitewashed, and also deep compassion.
I love like how I'm sorry, I thought you were done. The story you tell in your book about the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Jesus' approach to her, yeah.
Jesus meets this woman at the well outside in Samaria, and she had a dark sexual history. Some of the church have assumed that was because she had been divorced 5 times, maybe. She was living with someone who wasn't her husband, but divorce was very easy in those days and largely the power of the man. So she might have had 1 or more husbands who put her away because they didn't like her. It might have been that 1 or more of her husbands had died. War, disease, that was very common in those days. Whatever, she had been deeply wounded. And when Jesus said, go call your husband, and she responded, I don't have one. And Jesus said, you're right, you've had 5, and the one you have now is not your husband. That wasn't Jesus condemning. It was saying, I see you. I truly see you. And this is the place to deal with this. This is the it. He put his finger on the it. And I think that's what has to happen for each of us. How to find healing, to experience this Jesus through the Spirit saying, this is the it, and come into the light, lay it bare, honest with compassion. We experience that through other people and through time alone with God. Part of the way Jesus works that I have experienced myself and seen in working with other people is that the memories can change, not the facts, but the meaning can change when I bring my memory of whatever, either something that happened to me or that I did, into the light, and somebody else sees me and doesn't leave the room when I let that part of me be seen, or same with Jesus. God exists outside of time. Trauma is such a big part of our stories as humans, and sexual trauma being huge. I can, in my memory, experience being in that place. Trauma is like it's still happening. So whatever is still happening, something that happened to me or something I did, to go to that place and then see Jesus in the room or wherever, in that place, see Jesus physically in my imagination there. What would he say? What would the look on his face be? What would the sound of his voice be? What might he want me to see or understand? I have over and over seen people healed in the sense that their memories lose their sting. The facts don't go away, but the sting is gone. And experiencing Jesus seeing me there can do that.
To me, that is what's so beautiful about the woman at the well, because I mean, in my wildest imaginations, I can't imagine her running back to town.
Yes.
Saying, he's seen all the horrible things I've done. She was seen.
Yes.
She was beheld, but she wasn't shamed.
Right.
Like he sat with her in whatever that it was, like you said. You know, she was running back saying, he's seen all of me.
Yes.
And he's accepted all of me.
Yes. You know, she was the first evangelist. There are some church traditions that call her the first evangelist. And the marketing proposition she went and hailed to everybody is, this man told me everything about me. And that was not only what healed her, but it's then what she went and proclaimed to everybody else. Remarkable.
Wow. Carol Tanksley, you are the best. I love having you on the show. First of all, I love all of your energy. I love that you're a balanced voice. You don't have this sort of overly, in an unhealthy way, some sort of weird, overly effusive histrionic energy around the topic. Like you're just a very kind, balanced presence. And I really, really appreciate both of our conversations. This one has been great. I want to remind everybody about the name of your book, which is Sexpectations. And I want everybody to check it out. The subtitle is Reframing Your Good and Not So Good Stories About God, Love, and Relationships, again, by Carol Tanksley, MD, D-Min. Next book, you're going to come back on the show, I hope.
Thank you. I will say yes in advance. I will be delighted.
Hurrah. Hurrah. Well, I'm leaving today just feeling full and encouraged and really just in awe of the good things that you're doing. And Anthony, brother, I love you.
Love you.
And I love our listenership. We love you guys,
Yes,
all of
we
you in
do.
the Typology family. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have rest. Until next time.
Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn ads.com today.